Hey folks, Splint here, back at the Foam Forge. I know I haven't made a video in a while, but with the new construction for arrows, I figured I would make a video and go over some of it with you guys and teach you how to make some arrows. So first off, what we're going to do is we're going to go over the stuff that you actually need to build arrows and make them successful. Starting with that, the arrow shaft. These are just arrow shafts from Amazon. Um, they have a screw in for the tip that goes on them. Of course, you don't want to use that tip. I'll be going over here how to make a blunt and then how to wrap it correctly and everything. But the first thing you need is arrow shafts. And then what you're going to need is some 8/32 machine screws. I got the 1.5 inch long ones. That way they go into the shaft and they can kind of lock in. And if they ever start loosening, it's a long way it's got to go to loosen. And then next up, what you're going to need, I got these fender washers. They are 1/8 inch hole and then 1 inch diameter. That's what you need to be up to spec. And then we have some clear packaging tape here. I bought this brand because it was the cheapest one. Next, what you're going to need is you're going to need some strips of foam. I like the camp pad. These are to go around the back end of the blunt. And then we're going to build off of that with some Frost King, the 3-inch with the 1/2 inch hole, 1 inch foam. And then we'll also need some bigger pieces because we're going to do cutouts for the arrow blanks. I've made a little device to cut these out easier. It's just a PVC end cap that is 3 inches. And then I put it on my grinder and I ground it down so I can just kind of cut through the foam. Makes perfect rounds every time. And then what you're also going to need is some open cell foam, like a couch cushion or sound dampening foam. This is for the end of the head of the arrow, so it has a nice kind of soft cushiony hit. And then at the very end, you're going to need some pieces of fabric, roughly 6x6 square, so it can fit over the head completely and be taped down. And then the next thing you're going to need is athletic tape. That way we can secure everything to the shaft. We can make sure our cloth is on there. And then of course you're going to need a marker to put your name and your park on the head of your arrows, and either pinning or destruction. I would recommend either orange, white, or black for your actual arrows because the colored ones are specialty arrows. If you're making pinning arrows, use yellow. If you're making destruction arrows, use red. If you're making suppression, use purple. And if you're making phase, use gray. That's pretty much it for the portion of the video of explaining the contents you'll need. So let's get to it. All right, so first things first, we need to blunt our arrow tips. And I will be making these in steps so I can later go on at the end of the video to show you each step and its progression in case you've forgotten anything. That way you don't have to fully go back through the video. You can just look at the progression of them in the end of the video. But what we're going to do is we're going to take our screw, put our washer on it, and then we're going to slowly start our screw. And then what I like to do is I like to take a power drill and screw it the rest of the way in and kind of lock it down. There we are. That is our first portion done. So for your pieces of blue foam that we're going to attach to the shaft itself, you want them to be just about 2 inches wide and at least 5 inches long. That way when you wrap, you don't get like an off-centered round bit underneath this part of it. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're actually going to wrap our blue foam around our arrow. The clear tape, you're going to want a good bit off the end because it's going to have to wrap around to make sure everything is flush. But what you're going to do is just push this up to the end of the arrow shaft itself, and then kind of wrap this excess tape around it for stability, and then you're just going to roll. And then this right here is kind of one of the trickiest parts of the whole arrow build. So what you're going to do is just continually wrap around here until, of course, you get to the end here. Then you're going to flap your tape over and go all the way around. And sometimes you're going to get a little bit of lopsidedness around the head of this, and that's okay. It's not going to affect the flight of the arrow, really. You just want to try and push this over some so you can have blue on all sides of it. So our next step, we're going to take our arrow blunt and we're going to put it up against our Frost King foam here. And then what we're going to do is make a cut on our Frost King foam at that line. Just go straight through it, and that way you end up with a little round. And then what this is going to do, you can open this up slightly, push this into here, and then you're going to kind of mash that blue foam down so you can close this off. All right, now that we've got our black foam attached, what we're going to do is we're going to bevel off the back side. That way we get a better transitional taper to taping down our head to the actual shaft. The way you're going to do this is about halfway down from your foam here. You're just going to cut about a 45-degree angle. You want it to match up to the blue foam right here. That way you get a good tapered angle. All right, now that we have our taper complete, we're going to wrap the head of this with our clear tape, just an X on both sides, attaching it to the shaft itself. All right, now that we've got this taped up, what we're going to do is go ahead and make the tip for our blunts. And we're going to be cutting out 3 circles of the blue foam to stack on top of here. And then we'll have our black foam, our open cell, on the end of that. That way it's more of a cushiony hit and doesn't sting when you get shot. So for this part, I am going to use my neat little cutter that I made for rounds. I'm just going to put this. If you don't have one of these, you can always just use scissors. Draw a 3-inch circle, cut around it with scissors. Scissors are easier than using a razor knife. But yeah, you just put this on here after you sharpen it and twist it a couple times. And it cuts away your section. Sometimes if you're using the edge here, you'll have to come back with a pair of scissors and kind of cut this off a bit to get yourself a round. And then we'll cut out 2 more of these. There we go. There's our second one, and then we'll do a third. Apparently I need to sharpen that. But with these cut out, we can move on to our next step. And make sure when you are cutting these out, you have your scissors straight up and down. That way it doesn't create a 45-degree bevel on the sides of these. All right, now that we have our rounds cut, what we're going to do is we're going to take about a 10 to 12 inch piece of our clear packing tape. We're going to stack these together, and we're going to butt up the edge here on one side. And when you tape these together, you kind of want to squeeze them a little bit so there's no gapping on them when you're pressing them together. It'll help in the end it not to move. Then you'll also have this little recessed part here that will stick easily onto the outside of this arrowhead. And then what we're going to do from here is we're going to tape over this. We're going to use 3 pieces of tape this time, not just 2. That way we can tape this down to here and get a flush connection. All right, so I've got my strips of tape pre-cut for myself, so I don't have to keep stopping. I recommend doing that. That way, once you get these on, you don't have to do, them over and over again. And there's these little wings here on the outside where it's not taped. That's where I recommend you start taping first. So you're just going to go over the top here, come down like this, and then you're going to press that and then cinch that around the actual shaft. That way the tape has something to grab to for when we mash this side and push that down. And then we're going to repeat that 2 times. We'll go just off center. That way we get coverage on each side. And then again, we're just going to pull that down, press the side, and then come over the top end here and make sure we get a really good connection between that blue and that black foam. And then we have one more piece here in the spot that is not covered with tape. And come down again. And then the back side here. And then we have a basic arrowhead. And already this is pretty tight on here because of us securing it to the shaft preemptively before we do our athletic wrap. And then we just got to get ready to do the open cell foam on the outside. So for this part, you don't need a fantastical amount of the open cell foam. I like to use a little block of it that'll fit over the head of it, about an inch and a half thickness. Because you are going to tape this down and it is going to smush some, but it will provide a little bit of leeway for that hit. All right, so again, I've got my pre-cut 3 strips here. We're going to take our foam block, we're going to turn it on its side so it's a little diamond, and then we are going to place our tape in the center here, and we're going to go corner to corner here when we attach this to the head of this. So that way, those corners don't dog ear and poke out. And then we're just going to hold that in place. And we're going to smash this down a bit and make sure your tape is coming all the way down to the shaft here. It's just extra added stability, and stable arrows is a big deal. And so we're going to push this side down here. You're going to have a little crimp in the center, but that's okay because we're going to tape the other side. And after we get this done here, we're going to put this piece on here. We're going to tape the center first. That way we can pull down on the side and flatten that out. And again, make sure your tape is coming down to your arrow shaft. After we get that on there, we've just got one more piece of tape to do to make sure we get the rest of those corners correct. All right, and bam. That is a completely constructed arrowhead so far. Now all we need to do with it is take our piece of cloth tape or a piece of cloth, put that over it. That way we have a cloth cover. Then we'll tape around it with our athletic tape, and that's a done arrow. All right, so we're going to go ahead and finish off this arrowhead. We'll center this here, pull down on each side, and we'll get our cloth tape here, and we're going to start about a ½ inch to an inch from the head of it, making sure that we secure and pull down our little flaps and everything here. That way when we come around here, we can just taper it down. Make sure you're wrapping over about half of the tape strand that you just did, because you're going to try and compress the sides here with this athletic tape and make it to where it's a smooth transition down to the shaft of the arrow here. And then we'll change positions once we get down here. And you're going to cover all of your tape here. And so as we go down, we're going to make sure that we go over all of our clear tape. And then at the end, we'll just finish that off, and kapow, we have a whole new arrow. These arrows, the construction of the head to wrapping it and everything, only takes about 10 to 15 minutes per arrow. It's not a super complicated build. It's something that anybody can really do. We've got a nice cushion for our arrow. If somebody gets hit in the face or the neck, they're going to feel it, of course, but it shouldn't hurt really bad or anything like that, as our blunt is buried about 2 inches into the front. And I've had really good reviews at my park with this arrow construction. They fly really nicely. It just depends on how well you make them and everything. If you follow what I've done here today, you should have a pretty easy time getting them passed by your champion. And the heads don't wobble, which is the big key. Is nobody wants a wobbly head of an arrow. That means that the shaft can kind of hit and then poke through, which would suck. We don't aim to hurt anybody while we're LARPing. We just want to have a good time. But that is the build portion here. I will go ahead and get the rest of my shafts ready of progression, and then we'll go over that, and I'll give you a visual of the progression of each arrowhead. Okay, so now that we've gone through all of the construction process of doing the arrowheads, here's your visual representation at the end of the video here, to go over each step again. That way you can just go back and look in case you don't want to have to go all the way back. So this is the first step here. It is a 8/32 machine screw that is 1.5 inches long. And then this is a 1-inch washer with an 1/8 inch hole in it. That is step 1. And then step 2, we took our blue foam and we went around it with some tape. This is 2-inch tape, or 2-inch blue foam with 2-inch tape. And then I actually cut it down a little bit. I know I said 5 inches in the beginning, but I corrected it to 4. That way it goes around and is about the same size as the actual diameter of the blunt. So that is step 2. And then we have step 3 here, taking the black foam, putting it around your blue foam and taping that in place. That is step 3. And then step 4 is taking that blunt and adding our blue foam circles, 3 of them, to the front. So we get a base arrowhead here. Some parks might let you use this here as it is. It's not, going to hurt anyone really. But the open cell foam is just added comfort for the hit. So that there is step 4. Then we have step 5, where we have added the open cell foam to the top here, making it to where it's a little lighter of a hit that hits you. So that is step 5 there. And then we have the finished product of step 6. That's what you should end up with. Yeah, if you liked this video, please drop me a like. Maybe send me a comment of how you thought it went, what I can improve on, anything like that. If you have questions about building anything, please reach out and ask. I do read the comments. I do read messages and everything. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, check out my other stuff. I will be doing a basic Omniblade build here soon. That video should be up kind of quickly after this one. So yeah, happy shooting, and make some safe arrows.